You see, here's something about the glory we have to understand.
That we're in a season of tremendous
We
shift.
have to be a people. We must choose to be a people. It's time for the church to make Jesus their magnificent obsession.
It's time to be men and women of God.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike and Bruce with Fireside Chats, coming to you not so live from South Korea, where we've been holding a school of translation and doing a conference this weekend. And that's why we haven't really had a couple more of these online. But thank you for your patience and understanding. But it's been a lot of work, but it's been really good too.
It has. A lot of work and good.
What do you think of this? How do you think the school went?
I think the school went really well. People were very engaged, hungry, had a lot of questions. I think they did really well for this being really an introduction that they had not had before, it seems like. This seems like a new subject.
Oh, it was totally new to them. They were, judging by the comments we had, these people had never heard anything like this, and so many of them were in tears and grateful that we actually came and did this. And so we know we're going to have many more opportunities like this over here, if and when the Lord tells us to. But I thought it was very, very good. And then we also had Rosh Hashanah over here, where we had a worship and shared a little bit, but it was interesting. I'll share more on that encounter later at another time. I want to still kind of digest it and work through it, but we are in very interesting times, to say the least.
Yeah, and we met a lot of amazing people over here too. People that were really, I think, the school and the instruction and the foundational strength of the things that were taught really stirred up some things in people that they had in the past, but had not seen in a long time. Like the gentleman that we went to a Korean barbecue with.
Oh yeah, we met this couple that I think they were actually American citizens. They're South Koreans, but American citizens that came back to Korea and then went into China as missionaries. Now they lived on the border of China and North Korea, and we can't share a lot because it would get people in trouble. But I mean, the things they endured and suffered for their faith, and yet they're so filled with joy and strength. It's very humbling to be in their presence.
It is. It's amazing to hear other people's journeys across the world. As really, the Lord, I think, is giving them this particular type of instruction to walk in the powers of the age to come because of what they're, the work that they're doing. They have to have that equipping. They have to have that provision from the Lord, I believe.
Yeah, and the thought that kept going through my mind, Mike, was that what does our faith cost us? If you really think about it, to be incarcerated for over 6 months and tortured and beaten like that, and it took him 4 months, he said, to get the breakthrough in his spirit where joy came up and he wasn't concerned about death or suffering anymore, and his captors just couldn't understand that. It just amazing to me.
Yeah, and God really used him, even in that situation, to bring salvation to people. It's just,
Yeah, some of the guards. That was pretty good. But
yeah, it was kind of humbling though, because I complain. Not that I complain a lot,
well,
but
depends on who you ask, of course.
but I mean, I think about traveling and how sometimes people, they give you they put you in the cold room with no heat because it's more convenient, stuff like that, and I find myself grumbling a little bit, but then I remind myself, well, at least I haven't been beaten. But when you meet someone that has been tortured for their faith or imprisoned for their faith, it kind of lets you know that we just really have to be grateful to the Lord for everything.
It's kind of a stark contrast, if you will, between I hate to say this, but I'm going to be blunt. Those who genuinely walk after God and those who are hirelings, like we see the vast majority of American ministries that travel overseas and they have prerequisites. I got to have 5-star hotel and I got to have this and I got to have that. There's really not so much a servant heart as a serve me heart, because I'm all of that. They're puffed up in their own eyes, and I've watched that for years, and it's grieved and broken my heart. But again, this brings it home to, and it doesn't matter if you've been in front of hundreds of thousands of people. If your heart is puffed up, we're in danger of the Lord saying, "Depart from me, I don't know you." But to see these humble people doing what they did day in and day out,
Right.
and just anyway,
Yeah,
powerful.
that was something that stood out to me, that the difference of because people, you connect with them, they tell you the stories, they tell you the hardships, they tell you about some of the American ministers that come over here, and you think, it's just, it blows my mind when you see people that are truly serving the Lord and what they've suffered for the gospel, and then you hear stories about how people, they're offended because they weren't picked up with a limousine, or they didn't have a 5-star hotel because there was not one within a 3-hour driving time. It's just, it just really shows you that there are people whose hearts really burn for the Lord and for doing His will, regardless the cost, and those that will not be inconvenienced. So I'd say be one of those that truly loves and serves God. That's my advice.
Yeah, what's hardship here on earth when we got eternity with Christ?
Yeah.
I'm obviously this seems to be a theme that's struck both of us, but I'm reminded of past testimonies and even past experiences and friends I've known that have impacted the world for Christ, and yet they were willing and even did suffer hardship and persecution for what they accomplished. One of my dear friends in Singapore, Dave Richards, who's home with the Lord now, was first told he's of no value to the kingdom because he's never prophesied this or that or the other thing. And I got very angry at the arrogancy and haughtiness of the American pastor that said that. And so we became friends. We took him under our wing and encouraged him because he was gifted. Well, he had a business that he traveled all over, Southeast Asia there, and into India even. And he said, "Should I quit my job to go into the ministry?" I said, "Why? Your business you do during the day, you can minister at night, and your company's the one that sends you to all these nations, so it's ready made." So he refused to go to churches already established. And they would smuggle him into villages or regions where nobody has ever preached the gospel before. He said, "Why do I want to shine my light where everybody else has already had a light? I want to shine my light where nobody's had a light." And he would go in and suffer like that and do things. And it was amazing, his zeal and his passion for God in that.
I like that attitude about wanting to go somewhere that people haven't had the opportunity to hear the gospel, and that's one of the things I've appreciated about doing the school was that, and one of the complaints people had too is, we go to places that were out of the way. Starting with the first school in Chennai, it's like we would go to all these places that were kind of out of the way, and people would always invariably ask, "When are you going to come to this country? When are you going to do something in the United States?" But really, I enjoyed seeing the hunger of people that
Never had access.
never had access. Yeah.
And truthfully, most ministries wouldn't go because there's no profit.
Yeah.
I'm talking about profit money-wise, not,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's sad. Speaking of which, we have the opportunity again next year to go to India. That's going to be a blessing for another school up in northern India, this time near the Himalayas. That'll be fun.
So is that open to people that want to come?
Oh yeah, come on, trek your way over. It'll be up online when it's time. And we got another one coming up in Arkansas again at globalgloryministries.org. Is that it?
I'm sorry, but every time I think of that ministry, I think of
I know.
End Time Handmaidens.
Well, you can find it on our website. That's going to be in the U.S. at the end of October. But yeah, it really was brought home to me this time too. everybody and everywhere we went, there was this, all over the world, we've been hearing the same thing. September, the end of September in October, something is shifting, something's going to happen. And we've seen little things, and I still don't have the peace that, okay, whatever was going to happen, happened. It hasn't yet. And so, to me, we have to strike while the iron's hot and really, really be focused on what the Lord's saying to do and get it done.
Right. So people, they're hearing the Lord's voice that they need to do something. Quit putting it off.
Yes.
Do what the Lord's telling you to do. Don't save it for later. Just, that obedience. Yes, Lord, I'm going to do it. Maybe you don't know how to do what you're told to do, but take those steps of faith and the Lord will show you.
Yeah, very much. Very much. We've determined in our hearts that, especially in light of what we're seeing happen globally in the financial markets and things, and I don't focus on the world for my provision, but I do have the wisdom of God enough to know that He is my support. He's going to take care of us. But right now, I see the need to sow more because that's going to be the currency of heaven. Give. And it shall be given, and God will take care of us.
It's interesting that you brought that up because of the testimonies we've heard this week with people sharing, people that have hearts for the gospel, and hearing the testimonies. I'm not going to mention any names, but testimonies from people that have told about, it's like their mindset is kingdom, kingdom, kingdom. And one individual said, I just give when the Lord tells me to. I just sow in the direction He tells me, and I don't try to figure it out. I just do it out of obedience, and then the Lord provides what He's told me to do. And I've seen that in my own life too.
Yeah, we both have. Sometimes, I'll admit, sometimes it's grudgingly. I say, Lord, seriously, you want me to give into that? But He has a purpose and a reason, and He sees His ways are higher than ours, so we do it anyway. But just so you know, we're not soliciting offerings. We're just talking about our own walk and what we're sensing the Lord saying, that the currency of heaven is faith. And now, if we act like there is lack, we're going to walk in lack. But if we act like citizens of the kingdom where there is no lack and sow and do what God tells us to do, we're going to be well provided for the days ahead.
Yeah, soliciting offerings. I don't even like taking offerings, as you well
No, that's
know.
because you're supposed to receive them, not take them.
Oh.
I'm reminded of Luigi. You haven't given enough.
Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
Put my gun away.
Yeah.
But I was in Germany, and they said, Mike, we're going to take an offering. We want you to do it. I said, I don't want to do it. And they said, well, we need to take an offering. I said, you don't even have to take an offering as far as I'm concerned. The Lord's provided, for me to be here. So the guy turns to me and he said, you remind me of Bruce Allen. I said, thank you.
But oftentimes they want you to take an offering, so they think you can take a big offering, and then they give you a handshake and say thanks for coming.
Yes, that too.
It's all over the world.
That's part of the journey, and why are we laughing about it? Because that's in the Lord's hands. He has to deal with all that stuff.
Yeah, but it's not worth getting upset about. It's only eternal.
Yeah.
Eternal ramifications for those who are disabuse and abuse the gospel in that way. But
I have a feeling, though, that our people here that are listening, they are kingdom-minded people, and so they understand what we're talking about.
Oh, very much, very much. And I'm grateful for that. I've watched over the years and thought about it and prayed about it. We all have our own spiritual DNA, I call it. We're all wired differently. We seem to gather together with like-minded individuals, and so you got different aspects of the body of Christ, and it's not to be separate and, our camp and their camp. It's to understand we have specific functions within our body DNA where God's placed us, and we're supposed to complement each other. There's plenty of times I point people at other ministries to say, no, that's what your heart is. You need to go there because, tap into that. That's the flow that you're wired for. And we're all, quote unquote, on the same team, or we're all part of the same body. So why do we try and hold on to people so tightly? You ever wondered that? Well, our following. I don't have a following. I am a follower.
Right.
And so if people agree with what we teach, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine. If they want to tune in all the time, that's fine. But all of us, we're his sheep. We don't own anybody. We don't hold tightly to the group that follows us and tell them don't listen to anybody else or go anywhere else. And we've both seen that abuse. No, you go where God tells you to go, and you hook into what God tells you to do, and you grow there and become a blessing as well as being blessed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We each have our own function, so our lives are not going to look identical. Even if you work together, even if you're working with other people, your life and God is not going to look exactly like theirs. And don't feel like you're missing out, or I'm not fulfilling my purpose because I'm not doing what brother so and so is doing. No, you have a unique thing that God's given you, and even if it doesn't appear to be grand to you, if it's something that satisfies your heart, then you know that the Lord has placed it there. So,
Yeah, I was just reading a testimony out of Rick Renner's
sparkling gems.
Sparkling Gems too. Yeah, about the woman from his church when he grew up as a child. She was 60 years. She served in the nursery. 60 years of undivided attention to the calling God placed on her heart to work in the nursery with the babies, and how he and all of his friends had grown up in there, and so many generations came forth, and not one time did she ever complain or was she upset. She couldn't come into the service and listen, but she was taking care of the children, and her heart was so that the parents could listen, and she fulfilled her calling and destiny. And that's honorable. That's extremely honorable, especially
Absolutely.
60 years.
Incredible.
I mean, and we get
Incredible.
fumbling around after, a couple of weeks. This is getting boring. Well, okay. So we all have a lot to learn.
We do.
And I'm just as guilty as the next person. I can't disagree with that. But I know that the Lord's telling me to stand in what He's called us to do, and to do it with all our might and do it with excellence. So that's what we're focused on and trying to accomplish.
Yeah, when I was went out earlier to get coffee, you might have seen me drinking coffee.
Dunkin' Donuts.
The Lord was talking to me about having purpose, being purposeful in what He's called you to do. And He reminded me of something that my grandfather used to tell me. He would say, walk like you have someplace to be. In other words, walk like
Yeah.
you're going somewhere.
Yeah. You
And
have
the Lord-
purpose in your life.
You
Yeah.
have purpose in your life. Pray like you have purpose in your life. Serve the Lord like you have purpose in your life. And really just, let your passion come forth for the things of God.
Well, the truth is, I like that. Walk like you have purpose in your life. That's wisdom.
Yeah.
We all have a purpose. Some of us don't yet fully realize that, but this is the hour God is beginning to define that for those who seek Him and ask. So find out what your purpose is and go after it.
Amen.
Yeah. And I really sense too, we've been talking and sharing about praying for us that we can obtain the training center back home. I really feel we're stepping into that season where lack and all of that seems to be abounding. God's going to do what only He can do in the midst of that. So keep praying. I believe we're so close to having what God's promised us for these years, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think that I actually felt the Lord was speaking to me also about that this week. Funny how He does that, brings confirmations of the things that He's talking to you about. But yeah, the Lord is also speaking to me about that as well. And I could see it coming together in vision form, But also, as the things God's promised you, that for your own needs, your own ministry, your own work, whatever He's doing, realize that He is bringing a fulfillment of those things because of the time. The time that we're in is so important to be moving forward and doing what God has told us to do. And He will bring, that's just like I said earlier about the person that just obeyed what God told her to do. It was a woman, actually, so I'll share that much, but just obeyed, and then God fulfilled what He had promised. So I can see a lot of promises being fulfilled. So don't grow weary that, you've had a waiting period, or you've had a teaching, like a correction period, or a teaching or a preparation period, because I think we're coming into something pretty quickly.
Very much. I was blown away by the testimonies. Like I said, they would write. We require people. We give them homework to write out a testimony of what what their expectations were of the school, and then a testimony of what happened. And it was funny. A lot of it was in Korean, and you had to scan it and translate it into English, and then read it. And Mike and Reshma were just getting blown away by so many of those testimonies. What's one of the ones that really struck you?
Well, I really appreciated the healing testimonies, but
Stage 4 cancer. Yeah.
stage 4 cancer and other things, people being healed. But I, the overall theme was people were so grateful. Thank you for coming to our nation and bringing these things to us as well, because it was things I think the Lord had shown them, maybe that this was coming, or that there was more, and I'm going to teach you to walk in it.
They had a sense. Yeah.
They had a sense, but they didn't know what that would look like, and so many people they were literally crying as they would come up and deliver these testimonies. So to me, just the gratefulness of what God was doing. But the Lord was giving people visions and experiences in the things of God, and really validating what He was teaching them in this time, to show them the reality of this. And people were having they shared amazing testimonies. I mean,
One of the things that excited me is we have, I think it was a seminary theological professor here at the school. We had medical doctors and scientists, and I mean, from all stratagems of life. But it thrills me when you have those type of intellectual, scientific, or those type people that can be given to overthinking and reasoning away the reality of the supernatural. But their hunger was just amazing to me.
Yeah, and there was one man that had shared that in the early days of, I'm probably going to get his name wrong, Paul Yonggi Cho.
Yeah.
In the early days of that ministry, they preached a supernatural gospel when he was around. They preached that God did the miraculous and all that. And he said he hadn't heard that message for years. And coming to the school, he felt like the Lord had brought that back to Korea.
Yeah.
So that was a blessing to hear.
Could be in the right place at the right time.
Could be.
But anyway, that's kind of what we've been doing, why we haven't really been putting up as many videos as we should. But next week we'll be late next week, so we'll be home and
we'll get some done.
Knock some out and get finished setting up my electronics and doing things a little more, I don't want to say professionally. I don't want to be a professional. I just want to be do a good job.
And I'm going to throw away my Kmart camera that I bought for $39, and I'm going to actually invest in a $60 camera so that I have a nice.
What about the 4K camera you got?
Okay, I'll use that.
Yeah, you should use that one. Oops. Anyway, we're getting there.
Yeah.
So, God bless you guys. We'll talk to you again soon, and
Amen.
keep looking up. Your redemption draws near.
Amen. Bless you.